Hello everybody, welcome to the eApprentice webinar. Today's topic is the Mastercam MP post processor. I'm Derek Goodwin and I'm joined today by Colin Gilchrist, who will be your presenter. So let's get started.
So we're going to get started today. Today's topic is post processing. And what we're going to go through and take a look at basically the first section that we've got of our basic post-processing class. Colin Gilchrist, and I'm the Technical Director for eApprentice. And today's topic, again, is an introduction to post-processing. This webinar is the first module in the basic post 5 through eapprentice.net. Today's agenda. What is a post-processor? We're going to go over some notes on the post. We'll talk about post-processing workflow, the NCI file, control definition settings of a post-processor, and then we'll look at variables, functions, and some logic inside a post. We'll talk about looping and how it works, discussion of entry post blocks, and we'll talk about using the debugger to examine post output. Now, as we're going through today's broadcast, if you type them into the chat panel, and Derek will be answering questions throughout the broadcast by typing back. And if there's a question for me that he'd pause at certain points during the broadcast, and I'll try and catch up and answer those questions. So first we're going to start with a special note on obtaining the MP. So please note that in today's webinar and throughout the courses, we'll be referencing the MP documentation portfolio, which is copyrighted by CNC Software. Must request a copy of the MP documentation portfolio PDF file from your local Mastercam reseller. We will not be distributing this document as part of this class. You begin class as a prerequisite. So if you're looking to take a post-processor class, the reason we do this is that there are certain countries and regions in the world currently sold due to ITAR and EAR restrictions from the federal government. So these are the reasons that you've got to obtain the documents through your reseller. What is a post-processor? A post-processor is part of the posting process, which is the process of converting Mastercam tool to machine code for a specific CNC control. So for most users, a post is generally thought of as the PST file is a configuration script that can be modified to format the output of the NC code. The process actually involves many pieces. MP.dll is the post engine. This is a class of methods and functions. MP.dll and the PST file combine to create the NC code output. Also use a control definition file and a machine definition. These are files that are loaded into Mastercam that information about your machine and give you access to some quick settings that you would normally set inside the post. We also, as part of the process, and the post file is the configuration script. The ASCII NCI. The ASCII NCI file provides the toolpath motion, and then there are parameters. We actually have machine definition parameters, control definition parameters, machine group parameters, and toolpath parameter. Optionally, we can also interact with external files, scripts, and programs from within the post file itself. So relax, it's just an introduction. I like to state that out front because a lot of these subjects are pretty highly technical. And today, an understanding of the post file and how that file is used to format the NC code output. So the kind of technical details are going to be covered in later modules. Let's start by taking a look at the post-processing workflow. So it's time for... So we're going to go through and look at this workflow and go through it together and talk about what we're going to do. Excuse me. First, the user is going to select a machine definition. So the machine definition links a control definition and a post-processor file together. Toolpath operations. That's the name of the game as far as machining goes. I mean, you need to tell your machine how to cut your part. Once the program, the user presses the G1 button to begin the posting process. Once the post has created the NC code file, the file is opened in a text editor, the NC code. So there's much more to this process, but this is just an overview, so we're going to stick to the basics for now. I'm going to switch over to Mastercam. So I've got Mastercam X8 open in design mode. Basically, I've started Mastercam from scratch, and we haven't done anything yet. So the first thing that we do as part of the programming process is either import geometry or create our own. And then when we go to actually start machining and select a machine. Now in this demonstration we're going to be selecting a milling machine. In order to load different flyout menu, you would use the manage list function to be able to go and select a different machine. In this case, we'll select a generic mill. When I load a machine from the machine type menu, Mastercam loads a copy of the machine definition and into your active Mastercam file. I'm going to go up to the machine group here and open the machine group properties assigned to expand this information. Then I'm going to click on the Files option. And here we can set some files into our active Mastercam file. First, we load in the Genericos 3-axis mill, MMD-mill machine definition, and it's a version 8 file. This file, this machine definition, is then linked to control definition Genericos 3x mill dot control-8 is also loaded. A copy of that is loaded into our Mastercam file. And profile is linked to this particular post processor in this folder location. So in C users public document X8 mill posts, we have a post processor named Genericos 3-axis mill.pst. So we've loaded a machine definition and a control definition, and Mastercam has actually made a copy of both of those files and loaded those files into our... This control file references this particular post file. So the post does not actually get loaded into your Mastercam file, but a reference to that. So we've loaded our machine, our control, and our post processor. Now I'd like to create some geometry. So I'll start by creating 6 inches wide by 4 inches high. And I'll create some arcs, 1/4 inch diameter arcs. And I'm going to place them using relative positioning. So I'll hold down the Shift command before I click on this corner. And this is here. I want to shift over 0.5 inches in X and 0.5 inches in Y to create my first arc. Let's go ahead clicking on the diameter button here, and I'll do another one that's relative to this corner. We'll go 1/2 inch in X and minus 0.5 in Y. Both of these arcs here, and mirror them. So I'm going to do X form. I'm going to do mirror, and we're going to mirror it about a point. There we go. So a real extremely complicated example of geometry, I know, but it's enough to get the basic posting described. So what we're going to do here is do toolpaths, contour, and I'll select OK to enter a new, and the outside contour of this part. Now under Tools, I'm going to go and select a library tool, and let's grab a flat end mill. I'll grab a 3/8 flat end mill, and we'll go in, let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go 1 inch deep, and I'll generate that contour operation. Drill, I'm going to set my selection method to entities, and I'll go choose the 4 arcs that I'd like to drill. We'll grab a 1/2 inch spot drill, and under the linking parameters, I'm going to go and use my drill tip calculator, diameter. We'll tell it there's a little bit of a flat on the end. So I'm going to right click and hold, drag and copy that operation, select copy after. We're going to go grab normal drills, and I'll filter on the diameter. We'll grab our number 7 tap. An inch deep with our tap drill. Then I'll copy it one more time, and we'll make this into a tapping operation. And we're looking for right-hand taps. I'll go right-hand tap. And let's change our linking parameters so that this only goes, say, a 1/2 inch deep. Actually, let's go 625. So now I've got some operations that I'd like to post-process. I'm going to select Operations Manager and press the G1 button. So this is Post Selected Operations. We're now into the posting process. So it shows you what the active post processor is. In this case, it's the generic Haas 3X mil post processor. But both the NC file and the NCI file. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set our settings on that dialog box, and then it's going to generate our code for us. So in this case, I'm going to tell it to NCI file name because I don't care where it's posting at the moment. I just want to generate and look at the NC code. So I select the OK button, processor, and then once the file has finished writing, it's going to open it up in the Mastercam Code Expert code editor window. We now have our NC program. So it gives us some header information here. First we start off with the %sign. We have our program number. In this case, it's just program 0. We have the NC file name. We have the date and time that the file was posted. We have some information about where the NC file was. Then we have a tool list. So we're given a list of all of our tools, and the NC code actually starts about here for the program. So we get our G20 for inch mode, G0, G17, G40, G49, this G80, G90. This is going to cancel any active cycles and also put us in absolute of our tool change. So in this case, it calls up T237M6. Now, why did we get tool 237? We just went in and selected a library tool for this operation, and under machine group properties, if we looked at our tool settings, we don't have sequentially turned on. So if I had turned this on before I picked my tool number, Mastercam would have assigned the first tool I picked, tool 1, the next tool to tool 3, and so on. So in this case, I can go back in and select all my operations, right-click, edit selected operations, renumber tools. So I'll choose renumber tools. We're going to start with tool number 1, and we're going to have. Now we have the option to set our length and diameter options. So length offset value to be added to tool number, we want 0, which means the tool length of the tool number. The diameter offset value to be added to the tool number is also 0. Okay. Also, renumber tools not used in any operation. We don't have any yet. Now we'll select OK. Mastercam goes and renumbers our tool numbers. And now if we select them, process again, we'll select OK and repost. And you can now see not only has Mastercam renumbered the tools inside the Mastercam operations, but they're also now coming out as tool T1, T2, and so on code. And that's really the essence of post-processing. A post-processor is a converter. Information from the Mastercam interface that you set up and provide, and convert that information into NC can run. So let's go back to our PowerPoint here. The next thing that we're going to take a look at of post-processing is the NCI file. The NCI file is the input. The main job of the post-processor, input data into output data. To understand how that process takes place, you need to understand the input. It contains the toolpath motion data and the tool data that is used to create the NC code output. The data in the NCI file is written in two-line sets. The first line has a single called the NCI G code. This line calls an entry post block and also tells MP what the parameters on the next line, and then MP uses that information to set predefined variable values. And when I'm referring to MP or the post engine. So now let's take a look at an NCI file. We're going to go and switch back to math. And I'll select all four of these operations and select the post button again for G1. And what I'll do is turn off the NC file and turn on the checkbox to generate the NCI file. NCI, by the way, stands for numerical control, and this is just the generic centerline or CL file that Mastercam generates for the output of every operation. Option to overwrite, and I'll turn on the edit button and select OK. And Mastercam is now going to generate a copy of the ASCII NCI. All of the data in the NCI file is written in. So for example, the 1050 line posts out header information, and the 1050 NCI inside the post. As we scroll down through and look at this information, some of this information is set up. The 1016 line, additional miscellaneous parameters, might tell you that cutter comp is on and turned to the left, for example. Through the tool information, we finally get to the start of file. So the NCI G code 1 calls the start of file post block inside the post, and then passes this line of parameter data to MP. Reads each one of these parameter values, starting from the left and moving right, and loads each separate parameter and variable to hold that piece of data. At that point, MP starts processing from the end called and processes all the instructions in that post block. Once that particular post block is done processing, two-line set of data. So after we make this call to the tool change, the next thing that gets called is a call to prapid. 0 code tells MP that this is a rapid move. The next move after this two-line set, or this is also another rapid move. So it's this data, this set, that tells the machine to move from point to point or from arc to point or whatever, and this is the data processor is configuring for your NC code output. So once we get through here, then you'll notice this is a bit of motion. Here's another G1 move here. Then we have a G3. So here we're actually swinging an arc, followed by another linear move, a G1 move, another arc. So here's a G2 arc. Okay, so G2, G1. Here's another piece of linear data. Here's another G2 arc, G1, G2. And so you can see that this is the actual tool motions. And once we get down, this is our lead out. So here's our G3 and then our G1. That's the lead out move where we're going to be canceling the cutter compensation. And finally, our move to go home. And then down here, starting with the NCI 999 line of the next operation. So here, we're now processing essentially the second toolpath in this list. So contour number 1 generated the data starting here all the way up to the top with the 1050 line. So again, if we read down all of this information here is preparatory information until we get to the 1001 line. So you'll notice there's 88 lines of code ahead of the start of this operation. Then from line 89 down to line ending. This is all the motion data for that contour. Starting on line 127, the data for the next operation. So if I scroll down through here, you'll find this data from line 127 down to line 210 represents operation number 2, this drill and counterbore. Starting at line 211 and to line 296 is the data for our pectoral operation. And then from 297 here all the way to the end, 382, that's the 4th operation. And then finally we have the 1003 NCI G code, the file G code. So all of this data in the NCI file gets read and interpreted by the post processor in order to convert it to code that your machine can read. Now, the NCI file, which contains toolpath motion data. We have several other files, the machine definition, the controller, that are involved in flavoring or modifying your NC output. The control definition file allows you to make configuration changes to the NC code output without editing. It also allows you to maintain file-specific post settings by having a copy of the control definition written to your Mastercam file. Much more to the control definition files, but we'll just focus on some of the highlights for now. Definition parameter views set predefined variable values in MP. These control definition variables are used to configure output for, like, enabling or disabling sequence number output, setting archetype output, so radius or IJK, tool staging, and many more settings. So enough talk. Let's take a look Look at some of the curve, how changing them changes the NC code output. So I'll switch back to Mastercam, and let's shrink the Mastercam window down a little bit, and we'll pull up the NC code output window. Place it kind of side by side with Mastercam. Okay, so let's close this NCI file, and right is our NC code output. So we can see that, you know, we've got our program number here, we've got our tool list, and then we've got the output of our code. Now I'm going to go back to the Operations Manager in Mastercam and select the Files option here. This brings up the Machine Group Properties dialog, the Files tab. Down here we have a button that allows us to edit the toolpath copy of the machine definition. And what that means is that to this specific Mastercam file. So for example, let's say that normally you like having sequence numbers when you output your NC code. But you're running into an issue where you've got an older machine with a limited amount of control to reduce the size of your NC code. So every character and byte matters. If that's the case, we can do some things to reduce the size of this. Remove sequence numbers. And if we turn off sequence numbers, that actually will save a fair amount of memory. The other, we can remove spaces from our NC code. And finally, we could also set our arcs to use IJK. Now, that to me would be a last resort. I tend to like my arcs with IJK values, and the reason for that is that misinterpret radial values when it comes to cutting small arcs. And so for that reason, I will typically output IJK. I was going for minimum NC code space. Radial values can sometimes take up less memory, although, again, you're at the mercy of how your control arc. So be forewarned. Here what I'm going to do is select Files, and I'll choose the Edit button. This opens up the toolpath copy, and from here I'm going to select Edit the control definition. Now the control definition file contains a bunch of user modifiable settings that control the post output. So in this case, I'm going to select NC output. The output page, we have control over things like, do we output comments or not, and do we output sequence numbers. For output sequence numbers, we can disable the sequence number output in our NC code file. Now, in addition, I'll go down here to the spaces characters section and set my spaces between NC addresses to 0. Okay, so I've made changes to the NC output for this, and now I can also go to my ARC settings, and here I'll make some changes. Let's set this to signed radius, and we'll now select OK. Mastercam will prompt you and ask and tell you that the data has possibly changed. Do you want to save any? And we'll also select OK here and OK. Now what I'm going to do is select these operations and repost the file. We'll tell it to overwrite the have edit turned on, and I'll select OK. my editor will now ask me, do you want to reload the newly posted file? Watch the formatting over here. We've got sequence numbers on, we've got spaces between our NC addresses, and our ARC value. I'll select yes, and now we're going to load in the modified code. So you notice that we've removed our NC sequence, removed all of the spaces between our NC addresses, and our ARCs are now specified with radial values. And we've significantly reduced the size of our NC program. I didn't look and see what the prior starting size was, but you can see that we're now at 4 bytes of information. So we've significantly reduced the size of our NC program. Okay, so there are many more settings from within your control definition file, but these are some of the most important ones. ARC settings. Under Tool, we have the Opt-able Staged Tool Routines. So I had Staged Tool Routines off. If I turn Staged Tool Routines on, select OK, and then repost, we'll go ahead and reload that NC file, and you can see change. And then down here on the tool length compensation line, we're outputting the tool pre-stage call. So this is going to call up tool 2. It's that pocket ready. And then when we go and we do our tool change to tool 2, that tool's already in position, and that happens much more quickly. And then you'll see on the next tool change. So here, tool 3. Now we output T4 again for pre-staging. And then we call this here, we're pre-staging tool 1 at the end here. So now that we've talked about control definition settings and how they can be used to input, now we're going to actually take a look at a post file. So we're going to talk about the basic sections of a post or PST file. A post is organized into sections. The sections we are concerned with looking at today are the header section, which is P header, program information, comments, or output. The tool table, this is an optional section between P header and PSOF. And this is used to output comments for each tool used in the program. The other section we're going to take a look at is the SOF $. This is where the code from the first tool used in the program is output from. This also includes things like the safety. We have tool change, PTLCHG $. This is the section that controls the output when a new tool is used. We have null tool change, PTLCHG, which is the exact same spelling as here, $0. So this is called. That occurs, a tool number repeats when the same tool is used in a new operation in the operations manager, or depth or multi-passes. Then we have motion output. So these sections are plin out, prapid out, psir out, and that's G0, G1, G2, and G3. And then finally PEOF. So that is the end of file and controls the codes at the end of the NC program post, but that's all going to come later. So let's look at a post processor. In the NC Code Editor window, which is Mastercam Code Expert, I'm going to choose File Open. And by the way, if you want to launch Code Expert Editor without posting a program, here's how you do it. I'm going to close the NC Program Editor window, and we'll step back to Mastercam. So if I'm going to choose File, Edit / Open External. And the Edit Open External option, text file, so whether it's an NC program file or a post file, this is how you do it. So we're in Share State, I'll select Mill, Posts, and we're looking for our generic Haas 3x mill post. By the way, I can use the editor, which editor I am using, but I highly recommend you use the Mastercam Code Expert Editor if you intend to do any post-processor editing. The fact that the Code Expert Editor has language and syntax highlighting that will show you predefined variables and some other things that are in posts specifically. I'll select Open, and now we're going to open up the Code Expert window. So this is what the beginning of our Mastercam post processor looks like. We start out with a line post version, and this post version line tells Mastercam what product and of Mastercam this post is designed for. So V17.00. Also notice that there's a E17, there is a W17, and there is an M17. These version numbers, 17, what release of Mastercam these posts are designed for. In the Mastercam X series, so 1.0 was Mastercam X. Version 17 is Mastercam X8. And the way I always remember it is this number is one less than the current. 17.0 is going to be Mastercam X8. The 16.0 is Mastercam X7. So V15.6. And even though it says do not move or alter this line, you can save a copy of a post and you can that post. So V17, if I took this post and I wanted to make this into an X6 post, I could change this to VW to 15, and I could change the M to 15. And this post would now run in X6. That because if this post uses newer logic that isn't supported in a previous version, you can run into some problems. So I wouldn't recommend that you try to take a brand new, but if you do happen to have some users that are on an older version of Mastercam, this can have to be kind of careful if you decide to do that. So, looking down inside the post, the first top section is the header section. And this is going to that are written in English that will give you some information about this post and how it works. So this is the generic Haas 3x mil post. Down through here, it talks about some of the features of the post itself. We get into a section that describes how the miscellaneous values work, a little bit about the NC comments and the milling toolpath layout and some other things. Then we get down into the top section of the post that actually has that are being initialized. And an initialization just tells Mastercam about the variable. So up until now, were control definition settings, which means that outside of Mastercam, there is this separate file that acts as on top of the post. So anything where you see this option that says set by CD, this means that the control definition value override. So here, if I set stage tool to 1, for example, and I repost this file, but I do it with a stock control definition. Process MP reads all these variable values and sets the initial value based on what's here in the post. But controlled value, after the file has been parsed by MP, MP will go out and then read the control definition settings, and the value in the override whatever value has been set inside the post processor. So that's really important to understand. If the value is a control definition, it will override the post settings. The place where the post takes precedence are values that are not controlled by the control definition. So for example, stage tool, this value is overridden by the stage TL type, stage tool type, is not read by the control definition. So this setting here, this value setting the post processor, affects how we do our staging for the first tool. So a setting of 0 for, and I repost, tells MP do not stage the first tool. So at the, and what are we talking about with staging? I'm going to go back in here and select these operations and post one more time. In our NCI last tool in our program, we are staging tool 1 at this tool length comp line. So what we are staging tool number 1. If we switch back to our post and I tell it do not stage the that, I'll go back into Mastercam and repost, and we'll let it overwrite. Oh, before I do that, looks like over here I did, so we want to make that 17. Save it, because I was messing about earlier. Let's go ahead and repost. By turning that setting to a 0 instead of a 1, we removed the tool staging, but only at the last tool. So you can see that we've got tool staging on here after this tool change, same here, but at the last tool change, we're not staging the first tool. So if I go back in there and that actual tool change call here, so you want to be able to reset your machine, shut it down for the night, and you don't care if this is staged or not, because you know it's going to change to tool 1 and not a. We also, if I go back to the post, let's go back and look at this setting for tool staging. I can also shape, instead of a 0 or 1, I can do 2. and that's going to stage the first tool at the end of the file. So if I go here and change this to a 2, and we're going to repost in Mastercam, and we'll say OK. So if I go down, you'll notice here we're now staging tool 1, but we're doing it just before the M30 at the end of the file. A little long on time. I had some more stuff to talk about, variables, functions, and logic, but again, we're running close to the end of our hour. Sent me a note that says make sure you leave some time for questions. So I know that we had some more stuff to cover, but we're running short on time. So let's go ahead and end the presentation there. Go ahead and take some time and answer your questions. So thanks everybody for attending, and let's go ahead and pass that back over to Derek and your questions before the end of the hour here.
Okay, thanks for that presentation, Colin. Fantastic. Let's see how quickly we can move through this, because I know once it comes to the end of lunchtime here on the West Coast, a lot of people got to get back to work. So let's see. First question coming in from Troy. Has the MP documentation portfolio been updated from version 7 to version 8?
The documentation typically doesn't change much, but here's what happens. At the way that the documentation is done, Mastercam releases this MP documentation portfolio, and this is a PDF file that actually contains multiple PDF files inside it. So this is about 57 megabytes. If I open up this file, pictures that show all of the different files that are housed inside here. And the main documentation reference has not been updated since an old version of, because it's a huge set of files. And what Mastercam does is every time that this file gets updated, they load what's new documents. Release of Mastercam, you're going to see an update to what's new. So the only thing that I would expect to change between X7 and X8 is a new in X file, and you would still have your library of all the stuff that came prior to the release of X8, and then just an update to tell you you're going to definitely want to request an updated post documentation file. Basically every time Mastercam comes out, but you might just say to me, the what's new in X8 post PDF, so that I don't have to download a 58 megabyte file. And what they can do is open this up and right click and just say extract from portfolio, and that will allow you to save out just that PDF file. Good question though.
Yeah, and good answer. Okay, very good. So I had a question coming in. Will this video be recorded? Yes, it will be recorded, and about 24 hours from now, everybody who registered for the webinar will get a link to the webinar recording. Let's see. Coming in from Kurt, and this was early on, so may have moved past this, but Colin, how do you import a machine that is not included in the standard list?
Sorry, Derek, can you say that again?
How do you import a machine that is not included in the standard list?
Sure. Mastercam interface, we would go up to machine type, we would go to mail and select manage list, and this is going to list all of the machine definition shared MCAM X8 CNC machines folder. If you happen to have a file that is located in a different spot, you can just use this browse to a different folder location. So assuming that I had Okay, a machine definition that was located in a different folder, I would go browse to that folder. I would then find the different machine definition and select Add. Drop down, I would select Mill, and I would select this new folder location to a different machine, and I would load it in. And if I already had a machine definition loaded and I wanted to open up my existing machine definition and choose Files, and then I would use this Replace button here. And with the Replace button, I can then go Browse and select load it in place of my existing machine definition. So if I need to, choose a new option in the drop-down, I would use Manage List. And if I needed to replace definition, good question.
Okay, very good. Let's see. This is coming in from Aaron. I've spent some time today building a few machines for machine simulation. Everything is working as it should, but I would like Machine Sim to pull some settings from my post. The 3+2 post I am using defaults to position everything to the front of the machine, plus A. I have an option in miscellaneous values to turn that off if I want to. Is there a way for machine simulation to reference the post for these kind of settings?
Is a way for the post processor to output machine simulation centerline data. Quite an involved process to hook up a post processor to machine simulation. We certainly don't have enough time to get into. It is not as simple as just throwing a switch and then boom, you've got settings integrated in. So that type of post modification would basically require a class to show you how to hook up machine simulation Mastercam post pro. So it's a good question, but it's definitely outside the scope of this webinar.
And is that something, Colin, that would be covered in one of the upcoming post classes, or is that something that's, we've discussed doing a machine simulation course? Where would that fit into it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the real problem, you need to get a license from ModuleWorks in order to be able to do that, and it's set up for currently. So definitely something that is on our radar, and will require some discussion with ModuleWorks to the class if that's the direction we want to go. I mean, there's some debate internally with ModuleWorks about whether they want to sell a license, have licensed providers that do that as a service. That's the current direction they're going. So in order to get to your post, you need to contact a vendor who would then charge you, and they would pass along some of that as a fee. So it's not something that's just an, oh yeah, go take this class and you can do it. There are some there are some other kind of questions that need to be answered to you how to do it.
Okay, so if you want to follow up on that, Aaron, just send us in an email, and maybe we can help make those connections for you. So Robert's asking, how come when let's see, how come when he was following along with what you were doing to remove sequence numbers, he gets an error file, and then he can copy and paste that error file for us. That sounds like a specific issue that Robert is having. So Robert, please do copy and paste that error file. Send it to me in an email, derek@eapprentice.net. That's DEREK@eapprentice.net, and we'll take a look at that error file, and we'll just get back to you on that one. And Nelson's asking, can you just show how to open the post processor there, Colin, just so, open the post and navigate to it?
To navigate to what in the post?
The post processor itself. So I'm guessing File, Open External.
Okay, File, Edit, Open External, and trouble. You seem to be cutting out a little on the audio. So what was the question?
Yes, it was just how to open the post to edit it.
Yes. Yeah. So File, Edit, Open External Post File. You may have to change the drop-down, but it looks like it just automatically goes to all files, and then you just browse to location your post. Now, posts by default are going to users, public documents, and then whatever version of Mastercam you're running. So in this case, I've got shared MCAM X8, and then the prop router wire. In this case, we're doing mil, and then posts, and then we're browsing to whatever specific post processor we're using. So if we were using the generic, we would select that post and select open, and it's going to open it up in the Mastercam Code Expert Editor window, and then you could go browse to the setting.
Right. Okay, very good. Let's see. We can try and get through these. We're running over. I see a lot of people are dropping out because we're past that witching hour, but let's see if we can get through this really quickly. How do you post a safety line at the beginning of each tool? That's coming in from Jerry.
Basically, you would either need to make sure that, well, actually, for a safety line specifically, you would, decide what safety line. I'm going to go and find the safety line from PSOF, which is right here. So we've got our G0, SG plane, G40, etc. I'm going to copy that. The place where we want to go and have that come out is P tool change. Now, if you want a safety line on the null tool change, there's a bunch more work that you're going to have to go do. Under P tool change, this is where we get, this is our generic Mazak post. So I'm going to go back to our generic hosts. We're going to go to our P tool change. So PSOF is the start of file. That is the first tool change. So we always get our. Then we're going to go and look at our normal tool change, PTLCHG0. And here, prior to the tool chain M6, we're going to paste in that safety line. Now, I'm also going to force, using the asterisk character, of some of our string select variables. So I'll save that. We'll go back in here and repost this NC code. Oh, you know what I did? I switched out to the wrong post. So let's go back 3x mil instead of this other one we had, and we'll post. So that's the other thing. Got to make sure you've got the right post selected. So now we have our tool change, and we've got our safety line. This block probably doesn't exist, so we're going to do G49 and save that. And we'll repost. The error goes away because I fixed it, and now we've got a safety line prior to our tool change.
Very good. Okay, yeah. Kevin's asking, is there a diagram available that graphically describes the relationship between all of the files and how they interact?
If you go into the MP documentation, there's some good stuff in here. So if I go and look at MP processing, this, right-click and choose Open File. Oh, come on. Stop all that. So here talks about, I mean, this is about as graphic as it gets. You know, it talks about how MP processes data, the post file, post operations, Mastercam writes the ASCII NCI file, MP DLL launches. So, I mean, like I said, this is about as graphic as it gets for describing the posting
Right, but that's still helpful, yeah.
process. Yeah, about the preparatory post blocks and so forth. So yeah, that's all. This is all kind of included in that MP documentation portfolio file, a copy of that from your reseller.
Okay. Now I have a series of questions coming up. I'm going to leave it up to your judgment for how long we go with this. And I can tell by these questions, some of you guys really may want to consider signing up for the post course. We have it coming up in November. This is a 1-hour webinar, and we're already over time, so there's a lot of information here. Colin teaches a 16-hour course on just the MP post. So if you are interested in that course, please do navigate to eapprentice and sign up for the post course. It will be held over 2 Saturdays in November, and those dates are November 15th and then again Saturday, November the 22nd. There are 2 full days in that course. And let's see if we can move through this. And again, Colin, you'll have to decide what you can show quickly and what's just a little bit too in-depth for this. So Nelson's asking, he would like to have a G28 X0, Y0 at the end of his program.
Say that again, Derek. He'd like a G28 at the end of his program?
Yes, with an X0, Y0, or at least with a Y0. The X doesn't necessarily have to move.
So, yeah, the end of file, PEOF, is what control. If you look into a search in your post for PEOF, that is going to be where you notice this M30 comes out, and what you'll see is that got a call to. So P retract is the post block that controls basically the end of toolpath tool chain. What you can see is that the default behavior at the end of P retract is just to retract Z. Absolute, you're going to get your either G0 or G1, G90, G91, and then we're going to force out G28, Z0, and then equals 1003, or we have this switch turned on. We're going to output G28, and then we're going to output X0 or Y0 to be, X30 Y0 or, X30 Y -20 because their machine has a funky coordinate system or something. But if you want to modify the end of file, it would be this line in P retract. So here I'm going to save that as X30. We'll go, and if we look at the code that's generated, we get down to the end here, and now we're going to get G28 X30 Y0 X0. Good question, but that's where you control the retraction is in P retract, and you can also hard code stuff into the PEOF. But again, we're during our basic post class because it's stuff that's common, that people want to do often, change the output of their post.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Now, coming in from Tony, how would you add stock size to a header?
Stock size to a header is P header. And in the header, like right here, we're listing the material. So stock size is held in some predefined variables. Stock size, and I output this as a string literal. The stock variables start with ST, so you notice you have ST that you would want to use the Code Expert Editor because it actually comes up and shows you some of these predefined variables. So I'm going to do stock height, stock, and stock width. And we'd have to force out those values. And the other thing that we have to have is we have to have formatting for them. So we have to tell them how we want that value to come out. So this would not be the normal place I would do them. I'm going to do stock height, stock thickness, and stock width. And we're going to add and 2. Ooh, quick formatting here. Okay, and now if we have some actual stock here, we can now post it. Make sure I save that. Okay. Now, granted, I'd have to do some formatting and some other stuff to it, but you can see it's pretty easy as long as you know the predefined variable values that Mastercam and then output them. So here I got my Z and my Y backwards, you can see, but pretty easy to go back and move these around. So here's stock width. Let's put that there. Stock thick is going to be Z, and this one's going to be Y. Save it. We'll repost, and it's as easy as that.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, here's another one for you. How do I change where the M8 is called out to the first feed line?
Yeah, I mean, moving coolant around is, but rather than just showing that, I mean, I think we're going to have to cap off the questions here pretty quick because, I mean, I can show you how to edit posts all day, but, we're webinar. I mean, that'll be the last thing I show. Now, in this case, PSOF, typically coolant is output using, so it's pecan, pecan 1, or pecan 2, and they work a little bit differently. I mean, the standard way with coolant after, let me just do this, I'm going to do contour 2D, turn coolant on, and in this case, this particular post is using the V9 coolant, so that's a little easier. And we're getting our M8 there. So that M8 is coming in PSOF from PSCool. So if I comment out that line, PSCool, and I copy it, and we go look for plin out, we want coolant output at the first linear output. And the problem is you don't know if that linear output is vertical, right? This is just a Z move, but it's linear. Actually, it's not linear technically. So, I mean, we can get this and we can massage it and we can dial it in for exactly what you want, but it's not hard to move this stuff around as long as you know what you're doing.
Right, and sometimes you need to build a base. You can answer a specific question, but you're better off having a foundation of knowledge before you start just changing things. So let's see if we can move through this quickly.
Absolutely.
Can I get the cutting time from the NCI MD and export it to the NC file? So it looks like a cycle time.
The best option, the best option if you want to calculate cycle time is to use a .set file, because a .set file acts and it linearizes all of the output, and it internally it turns off can cycle output for drilling. So what that means is that the cycle is actually captured, so we can actually get more accurate times, and the secret is to integrate the output set file into your post processor. So we can actually have the post processor call up the .set file, pass it the NC file info, calculate a bunch of values, and then pull those values. But that's not something we can do in a minute.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Next one up. In your example of pre-staging tools, how did Mastercam obtain that information if it is below in the NCI file? That's coming in from Dan.
The NC twice. Whenever you post in Mastercam, the post processor actually runs through your NCI information. Mastercam has what's called the pre-read loop, where it loops through the entire file, but it doesn't read everything. It loops through and it reads the tool change info things for processing time's sake, where it skips some data and it reads other data. And that's how it knows what's coming up. So how we can go and get our min and max X, Y, and Z extents for each toolpath. We do it in the pre-read loop. It's a good question, though.
Okay, and I know we are having some audio problems clicking in and out, so let's try and get through this very quickly. I have, like 15 or 20 people saying thank you for a great presentation, so I won't read through them at this point in time, but just thank you, everybody. We do appreciate your time. Let's see, I got one more here. That's a specific question. How would I add an M31 chip auger? Coming in from Jeremy.
It depends on where you want to be able to turn. There's two ways to do custom output from a post. You would either set up a miscellaneous integer or real number to be able to control that M31 text output. That's the other way that we can do it, and both work well. It really depends on if you need to be able to control it in the middle of a toolpath, or if you only want to be able to turn beginning or end of a toolpath. So there are two mechanisms that you can use to do that. Neither one of them, but both of them take probably, they're not too involved, but we just don't have time for it today.
Okay, so just contact us, Jeremy, if you want to get into that further. I got one more here. Let's see if we can do this one. For finishing toolpaths, can I output the step over or scallop height in the header of the posted file? That's coming in from Tom.
Yes. Yes, you can. It depends on if it depends on whether or not you want to do it for every operation, and if that's the case, we have to make some output the data, because right now we only output one entry per tool. So if it's tool 1 is used multiple times in the program, you're the first operation that uses that tool number. So of course we can have it output info for every operation, but yeah, so we can pull that. I mean, if we go and we look, if we go and set multi-passes, for example, and we set this for a space 0.12, let's do 1, 2, 6, 4, and say 3 passes or something like that. Want that step over value, we need to know what parameter it comes from. So we would go look in our parameter reference guide, and if we go down and we look at our operation and toolpath parameters, we want to find so in this case, this one happens to be a contour toolpath, and we're going to look for this multi-pass value. So multi-cuts, number of roughing cuts, let's see, so it's probably 15561. Now, one of the ways that we can tell, which is kind of fun, if we go back into our post and we look at the parameter section, one of the things that we can do is use P parameter here to dump out all the parameter values. So I'm going to remove this # code here, and we're going to repost this. So I'll select, say that we want to post it, and it's going to list all of the parameter values that are coming out. And what did I say? It was 155 something. 15561. So if we look at our parameter numbers, it's there, 15561. So here's what I'm going to do. It's PWRTT params that holds the data for the tool table. Sloppy coding, so I don't recommend you do it here, but we're going to say we're going to call this step over. And we're going to do some formatting. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to capture the value. (15561). Then step over. As parameter 1. Okay, so we capture the value. And then we're going to go find our tool table. And here's our toe. All right, plus step over. All right. Plus. Okay. So, a long go through, but definitely possible. Oh, I'm going to turn that off real quick. And we want that guy turned off. Okay. So again, last thing. We can now include the step over. And because the value didn't change in any of these tools, we just write out the same value. Capture that step over value from this parameter. And yeah, we'd have a little more work to do to clean it up, but it's certainly possible.
Right. Okay, Colin, I'm going to cut it off there. That's pretty excellent coding on the fly there.
Sure.
And again, have even more people saying thank you, fantastic presentation. So, okay, everybody, we do appreciate your time. Hope to see some of you guys signing up for a course. And we'll talk to you very soon. Watch your email. 24 hours from now, we'll send you a link to this video. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.